and so let a new day begin. This day will be a little different because now I have enough information to talk about the situation of the motels here as well. Like I said in my intro, I'm not only going to talk about the good things here, but also about the bad and the ugly too. And now I have experience with that as well. To be specific, this is the very first hotel room. That is absolutely and downright bad. I would call it bad because, for one specific reason, right over here there are these really strange and weird looking white stains, or whatever you might actually call them, these odd white spots located right behind the bed frame. I honestly have a pretty good idea of what this substance actually is, but I have to say that it is absolutely not, definitely not ideal at all to find this. So that is the very first thing that I have noticed here that is causing some concern. And if you take a moment to look closely behind the heavy wooden wardrobe, you can really see exactly what has been hiding back there for all this time. Plus, you should definitely pay close attention to the overall cleanliness of the dusty corners throughout the room. That level of detail really says a lot about the maintenance here. You see what I mean? By the way, it is important to remember that this is essentially about a $50 hotel, or perhaps more accurately, a motel, just a standard budget motel experience for the price. But that doesn't give them any excuse, and it certainly does not justify the actions of any chain, especially in the case of Wyndham. I didn't want to mention their name because I'm actually a member, since I used them many times in England and I never had any problems with them. But here, it's a whole different story. There are bad hotels in England too, where it smells bad, but so far, this one takes the cake. So here is a bit of helpful advice. If you are booking a motel, it is absolutely essential to check the online reviews. I always check the reviews. This hotel has a rating of around 3.1. That's what people gave it. However, there is a catch. Actually, there are several pitfalls that you definitely need to watch out for. First, you should handle the check-in process. If the check-in time is scheduled for 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, please don't delay it past 6 or 7 o'clock, because by then most of the good rooms are already taken. Because in hotels, as far as I know, the hotel system doesn't always assign rooms completely at random, or rather it doesn't always allocate rooms randomly. Just because a hotel room is the cheapest, that doesn't mean, although let's add this wasn't even the cheapest, but that absolutely doesn't entitle them or anyone else to let this happen. So I'm actually going to file a formal report about this unfortunate situation with their management team, and then we'll just have to wait and see exactly what they decide to do about it. I handled the planning for my next accommodation much more wisely, because when I was carefully mapping it out, I decided that I absolutely wouldn't stay at any motels with a customer rating worse than around 3.3. Now I've raised that to 3.7 or 3.8. So, we are going to see tonight what the next hotel will be like, which will already be located in Florida. We'll see what kind of condition it is in and how good it will actually be. For example, I don't get upset if the furnishings are old. Naturally, you can't expect these hotels. You can't expect them to be constantly kept up to date because that's just not possible, but there are more important things. There should always be clean towels. If your towel is clean, that's already a good thing, because that's a basic obligation that simply has to be met. Another important thing you should look for is a perfectly clean and well-maintained bathroom. But you really shouldn't be too surprised by this, especially in the southern states. If you come here, the air is always much more humid. So the rooms often have a tendency to get much stuffier than you might expect. But as long as there's no smell of alcohol, urine, or booze, I always go for non-smoking rooms anyway. I always ask for them because I haven't smoked, vaped, or anything for a year and a half now, so cigarette smoke really bothers me anyway. Another thing, air conditioning. Almost every room in every southern state has air conditioning. The point of these is that when you arrive in the evening, if you arrive in the evening, it's tricky because no one has turned it on for you. And if no one has turned it on, you open the door and about 45 to 50 degrees Celsius hits you in the face, which isn't exactly great at night when you want to sleep. So you have to turn one of these on afterwards and wait a good half hour until it cools down the room. It has a relatively steady sound, so I think you can sleep just fine with it on, which wasn't a problem for me. But I really tried to focus on the specific part of the bed for sleeping, where there isn't that large, noticeable white stain visible. It could be anything. It could be honey, or maybe someone was shot there, or maybe it was blood. I'm not going to investigate this now. So what you should definitely check are the towels, whether they're clean. If the towels are clean, that's already a good positive point, although it should be quite obvious that those items need to be clean. Second, the bed. The bed is a bit more interesting because the one thing that you absolutely want to avoid is an infestation of bed bugs. So whenever I get into a hotel bed, I always check every single time whether all the layers underneath are clean, whether the mattress is in good condition, and if everything is fine, then it's good to go. In this case, there was no problem with the bed, but if there had been, I would have asked for a new room. A room from the reception, because you have the right to do so. If there is a problem with your hotel room and you feel that it doesn't meet your needs, you should go back to the reception and politely ask them to give you another room because you are not satisfied with what you received. It is their absolute duty to do this for you. Thirdly, if the bed has a base, obviously you can't look underneath it, but if it doesn't have a base and the bed frame is open, it's definitely worth checking underneath. In my case, there wasn't anything under it except for dirt because it was very dirty, and it's still very dirty, but it's worth looking underneath precisely because although it's very rare someone might be hiding under there, there have been cases like this in history, so it is definitely worth your time to check absolutely everything in here. You should look through all of the kitchen cabinets, inspect the bathroom area, and see if there are any of those large standing wardrobes. It is definitely worth taking a look at them. Every single one of these little details and moments is just as much a vital part of the overall experience and the final review. And I actually carefully considered and factored all of these elements into my evaluation. So we will just have to wait and see how the next hotel on our list turns out. But for now, let's get started with everything, and let's begin the day properly.
Interstate 95 is the backbone of the US East Coast. It stretches all the way from Maine to the southern tip of Florida, spanning over 1,900 miles. Right now, I'm driving along its southern stretch, and it's fascinating to see how the landscape transforms mile by mile. Back in Georgia, trees and oaks dominated the horizon, but around Jacksonville, the first palm trees suddenly appear. Somewhere past Daytona, it hits you hard. This is unmistakably Florida. The air, the light, and the temperature, they are all completely different. We've officially made it to Florida, the Sunshine State, and this is going to be my home for the next week. From here, we're heading all the way down to Key West, the southernmost point of the US, and then back. But first, I'm taking you to a place that I've probably been looking forward to the most on this entire road trip, both as an engineer and a space exploration enthusiast. Come along, because Cape Canaveral and the Kennedy Space Center aren't far from here.
We've arrived in Titusville, specifically at Spaceview Park. This is a relatively small, peaceful and quiet little town, located on the banks of the Indian River. But what lies waiting on the very other side is truly one of the greatest wonders of modern history, the legendary Kennedy Space Center. We are exactly 11 miles away from the launch pads. See the spots where the Saturn V sent people to the moon. This is the historic site where the space shuttle successfully lifted off into orbit 135 times, and it is where SpaceX now launches Falcon 9 rockets on a nearly weekly basis. Admission to the NASA Visitor Center is about $60, but this park is completely free. And honestly, the view you get standing here looking out at the launch pads is, in my opinion, much better than any museum ticket. Somehow it feels completely different because here you can really sense the scale. If they launch a Falcon 9 rocket from here and you're 11 miles away, you can still significantly feel the vibrations even from here. To be honest, as an engineer, my heart skips a beat for a moment here. What's over there is 57,000 hectares of technology, really. So the Kennedy Space Center is so big that it practically has its own zip code. Every Apollo mission started from here, as did all the space shuttles, and now the Falcon 9, the Falcon Heavy, and soon, or actually Artemis has already launched from here too, which will take humans back to the moon. Or rather, by the time you're watching this, it already has. On the first day in New York, I talked about 16 giant pumps at the 9/11 Memorial, then at the Brooklyn Bridge about the genius of the Roebling family. At NASCAR, we pushed the boundaries of aerodynamics, but now I'm standing here looking over at the spot from which humanity left the planet. This was the exact moment in our history where we collectively made the monumental decision to leave our home planet Earth far behind us and courageously venture out into the vast, silent, and completely formidable depths of the great unknown that lay ahead of us. In a way, everything we do as engineers, whether it's embedded systems, software, or bridge building, it all leads here. Every engineering project fundamentally asks a single question: what is the possible limit of what we can build? So the answer lies there on the horizon. Because there are no limits, only perseverance and desire. And this is what drives humanity to keep pushing our boundaries until we cross new ones. And once we've crossed those, we must cross even newer ones. Because technological progress leads exactly to this. When we reach a boundary, the emergence of new technological advancements creates yet another stage of progress. So, in other words, step by step, but the limit is the starry sky.
Rocket Garden. When you walk into the Kennedy Space Center, this is the first thing you see, and it absolutely takes your breath away. 9 real rockets standing here, pointing straight toward the sky. Not mock-ups, not replicas. These are real machines built for flight that just never launched. This one here is the Mercury Redstone. In 1961, this very booster launched Alan Shepard, the first American in space. The whole flight lasted just 15 minutes, but those 15 minutes changed history. Right next to it is the Mercury Atlas. John Glenn flew on this in 1962, becoming the first American to orbit the Earth 3 times, and he controlled it manually after the automatic system failed. He was exactly the kind of guy who takes total control the second the system breaks down. This is the Gemini Titan II, originally an intercontinental ballistic missile designed to carry nuclear warheads. Then someone at NASA said, if it's reliable enough to deliver a nuke, it should be reliable enough to carry 2 humans into space. And they were right. The biggest one here is the Saturn 1B. This launched Apollo 7, the first crewed Apollo mission. Its big brother, the Saturn V, was 5 times its mass. That's the one that actually took humanity to the moon. Walking through the rocket garden feels like walking through a graveyard, but instead of the dead lying here, dreams are standing tall. Behind every single rocket are 1,000 engineers, 1,000 sleepless nights, and a single question: can we get there? The answer is standing right in front of you. Yes, we could. The Gateway exhibition showcases the present and future of space exploration all under one roof. Floating right above your head are real, flight-proven rocket parts and life-sized mock-ups. It feels exactly like stepping into a futuristic spaceport. The Sierra Space Dream Chaser is the first commercial spaceplane since the Space Shuttle to land using wings. It touches down on a regular runway, just like an airplane, is reusable, and can carry up to 5,400 kilograms of cargo. If the shuttle was the past, this is the future. This RL-10 rocket engine powers the SLS upper stage. It burns liquid hydrogen and oxygen, generating nearly 50,000 kilograms of thrust in a vacuum. Essentially, this is the engine that pushes the Orion capsule out of Earth's gravity and sends it toward the moon. This Orion capsule flew back in 2014, built by Lockheed Martin. It traveled more than 6,000 kilometers, approximately 3,700 miles, away from Earth, 15 times farther than the space station. This is the technology taking humanity back to the moon under the Artemis program. Looking up from underneath, you really get a sense of just how massive this capsule is, and how every single square inch of that heat shield is engineered for survival. The SpaceX Dragon is humanity's first privately built space freighter. The Boeing Starliner was originally designed to ferry astronauts to the space station. In 2024, 2 NASA astronauts were sent up for what was supposed to be a routine 8-day test flight. But due to critical thruster failures, the crew ended up stranded on the ISS for 9 months, and the SpaceX Dragon ultimately had to bring them home. The Starliner itself returned to Earth empty, and NASA classified the entire mission under its highest severity anomaly category. And this right here is the Blue Origin New Shepard capsule, Jeff Bezos' suborbital tourism spacecraft. It climbs over 100 kilometers, about 62 miles, into the sky, where you get to experience weightlessness for a few minutes before returning to Earth under parachutes. This Falcon 9 side booster has been to space twice. It first launched as a standard Falcon 9, and for its second flight, it served as a side booster on the historic first ever Falcon Heavy launch. What you see on its surface isn't rust. It's the actual scorch marks and soot left behind by the brutal heat of re-entry. Another major exhibition here at the Kennedy Space Center is Journey to Mars. It's not about how nice it would be to reach Mars someday. It's about the concrete steps humanity is taking right now to make it happen. What surrounds us here isn't just concepts and dreams. These are real engineering solutions, some of which are already actively being used on the surface of Mars. Primary vehicle of the Mars 2020 mission is the Perseverance rover, which has been working in Jezero crater since February 2021. Jezero crater wasn't chosen by accident. It was once an ancient lake bed, and if life ever existed on Mars, its traces should be locked right here in these rocks. The rover drills core samples from the stone, seals them hermetically in titanium tubes, and leaves them on the Martian surface, lined up neatly like a high-tech luggage locker. The plan is for a future mission to collect these tubes, launch them into Martian orbit, and have another spacecraft bring them back to Earth. If this succeeds, it will be the first time in human history that we hold a physical sample from another planet in our hands. From an engineering perspective, this is a three-stage logistics chain: rover on the surface, rocket to orbit, capsule back home. And all three elements must operate autonomously and flawlessly, more than 55 million kilometers, about 34 million miles, away from the nearest mechanic. Inside was a stationary seismic station on the Martian surface. It didn't drive around like a rover. Instead, it sat in one place, listening to the deep interior of the planet. It landed in November 2018 and operated for over 4 years, nearly twice as long as originally planned. On board was a French-developed seismometer that detected a total of 1,319 Marsquakes, including the most powerful one ever recorded on another planet, a magnitude 5 quake. Inside was the first mission to map the internal layers of Mars, its crust, mantle, and core. Essentially, it performed an ultrasound on an entire planet. The image shows the final selfie it took in April 2022. By then, the solar panels were completely choked with dust, generating barely a tenth of the power they did upon arrival. Engineers eventually placed the robotic arm into its final retirement pose, and in December 2022, InSight fell silent for good. On the left is Sojourner, which became the first ever rover on the surface of Mars back in 1997. At 65 centimeters long, around 25 inches, and weighing just 10 kilograms, 22 pounds, it's roughly the size of a small dog. Next to it is the Spirit rover, which landed in Gusev crater in 2004. This was a machine on a whole different level, packed with solar panels, a robotic arm, and its own onboard science lab. The original mission for Spirit and its twin, Opportunity, was planned for only 90 days. Spirit ended up operating for 6 years, and Opportunity for an incredible 14 years, giving engineers over 100 times the lifespan they bargained for. Standing here between the two, you can really see how NASA learned from every single mission, and how their confidence grew to send bigger, smarter, and bolder machines into space. The MRVN, the Mars Rover Vehicle Navigator, is a concept vehicle that shows exactly what kind of machine future astronauts might use to traverse the Martian surface. It stands 3.5 meters tall, approximately 11.5 feet, 7 meters long, approximately 23 feet, and weighs nearly 2.5 tons. That's roughly the weight of a standard pickup truck, kept remarkably light thanks to its aluminum and carbon fiber chassis. It was built by Parker Brothers Concepts, a team famous for designing vehicles for Hollywood, including the iconic rides from the Tron movies. The coolest part? The vehicle actually splits in two. The front section is a high-mobility scout unit, while the back functions as a detachable mobile laboratory that can conduct research completely on its own. The whole thing is fully electric, powered by solar panels and a massive 700-volt battery. And right here is the crown jewel of the Kennedy Space Center, the Space Shuttle Atlantis exhibition. Inside, a real, authentic space shuttle awaits, a vehicle that completed 33 missions into space and carried 207 astronauts throughout its historic career. Standing right outside the Atlantis building is a full-scale replica of the 3-part rocket stack that accompanied every single shuttle launch. That massive orange cylinder is the external tank, which held the liquid hydrogen and oxygen that fed the shuttle's 3 main engines. This tank was the only part of the entire system that wasn't reused. It burned up in the atmosphere after every launch. Those 2 white columns are the solid rocket boosters. During the first 2 minutes of liftoff, they provided a staggering 70% of the total thrust. Once burned out, they parachuted down into the ocean, where they were recovered, refurbished, and reloaded for the next flight.
All my thoughts and world in motion, you were there to take it all. You poured it out into the ocean, 'cause you can't.
What you're looking at right now is the Space Shuttle Atlantis, up close. And the very first thing that catches your eye is the surface. These aren't painted panels, these are thermal protection tiles, over 24,000 of them, and every single one was individually glued by hand onto the shuttle's body. The darker tiles around the nose are made of a reinforced carbon-carbon composite, because during re-entry, this section takes the brunt of the heat, reaching temperatures up to 1,500 degrees Celsius, 2,730 degrees Fahrenheit. Those circular pores are the maneuvering thrusters, the RCS jets, which were used to control the shuttle's orientation in space and position it to begin its atmospheric re-entry. When I first saw this vehicle, it hit me just how weathered and worn it looks. But that's exactly what makes it so authentic. This isn't a museum mock-up. This machine actually went to space 33 times, and every scratch, every single scorch mark tells a story. It made me think about how this machine was designed by humans, built by humans, and flown by humans. And the fact that it brought its crew home safely all 33 times isn't luck. It's pure engineering precision. Atlantis was the final space shuttle ever to launch. It landed in July 2011, closing out a historic 30-year era right here at the Kennedy Space Center.
You should warn all my rivals. I aim for them like a sniper. Got the heart of a lion, there ain't no denying. Made a promise I plan to keep. Blood, sweat, and tears, now we're about to shift gears. I'ma knock you right off your feet. Can you hear the thunder roll? Welcome to the jungle. I'ma take what's mine and take what's yours. Lord, have mercy for the coming storm. So bonafide you can't ignore. Can you hear them bells ringing? Down on there's an angel singing. It ain't over till it's over. It's a cold day about to get colder. I was raised by a fire, tension's getting higher. Glory's within my reach. Aiming for the sky like a Rocky Mountain high, and there ain't nothing that's gonna stop me.